Hello everyone, welcome to Twilight. Problem is possibility, and this is Dr. Lakshmi. Today I am here to talk about our second part of endocrine series, that is thyrotoxicosis. It is one of the life-threatening endocrine emergency, and we often miss the diagnosis because of overlapping of symptoms and signs between this thyroid storm and other diseases that we commonly encounter in the ICU, especially sepsis. So I'll start with the case with that. A 32 years old female patient came to ER with history of fever since 3 days, severe abdominal pain and diarrhea with since 3 days, and there is history of neck pain in anterior part of the neck. There is a history of pain since 4 days, fever, diarrhea and neck pain. The relevant recent past history is she underwent LSCS 3 weeks ago. So basically she is in postpartum state. On examination, she is irritable, not following commands, so sensorium is altered, febrile with 1 or 2 Fahrenheit. There is diffused abdominal tenderness, no guarding, no rigidity. On auscultation, there were crepes on the lungs and S3 gallop is there on cardiovascular system. So basically, she is in heart failure, febrile, and there is diffuse abdominal pain and tenderness. Deep tendon reflexes were brisk. Vitals wise, blood pressure was on higher side, tachycardic, she was in AF, ECG was showing AF, tachypneic and hypoxic, saturation of 85% with room air, and she was febrile. So blood pressure was on higher side and she is in heart failure, tachycardia and hypoxia. ECG is showing no P waves and RR interval irregular. Definitely heart rate is on higher side. So it is AF. The possible diagnosis will be always sepsis is the first possibility, considering her history of fever and history of abdominal pain with diarrhea and recent history of surgery on the abdomen. So always the intra-abdominal sepsis is one of the possibility, and other rare possibility is thyroid storm and thyrotoxicosis. If we look at the history, there is she is in postpartum state and there is history of neck pain. So especially in case of the postpartum, there will be autoimmune thyroiditis or infective thyroiditis, which can cause destruction of the thyroid gland and release of the hormones. This sudden release of the hormones will cause thyroid storm. So how to approach and how to diagnose thyroid storm? This Busch-Bartoszky point score. This score has been followed widely in the Western countries. In this score, they have included temperature, cardiovascular system with heart tachycardia and AF, congestive heart failure, GI involvement, GI and hepatic involvement, CNS, and presence or absence of the precipitating event. Each parameter having certain score. If this score is more than 45, thyrotoxicosis is likely or thyroid storm is likely. Less than 25, storm is unlikely. Other criteria to diagnose the thyroid storm from the Japanese, from the country of Japan, their patient should be having positive biochemistry, increased free T3, free T4 levels, along with other symptoms and signs, CNS involvement, cardiovascular involvement, GI involvement, plus fever. So these are the symptoms, signs, or criteria from the country of Japan. From the based upon this criteria, they have graded or categorized the patient into thyroid likely or confirmatory, thyroid suspected. TS1 is thyroid storm confirmed. So in TS1, first combination is presence of biochemistry, positive biochemistry, along with all other organ involvement. The alternate combination, at least 3 symptoms and signs along with positive biochemistry. TS2 is thyroid suspected. The first combination is thyrotoxicosis biochemistry plus at least 2 of the signs, 2 of all other organ involvement. Alternate combination, patient will be having all symptoms and signs with abated biochemistry. What are the causes of thyroid storm or thyrotoxicosis? What is the basic pathology? This can be Graves' disease, multinodular goiter, thyroiditis, or radioactive iodine therapy, iatrogenic thyrotoxicosis, or exogenous thyroxine supplements, accidental or intentional, or one of the therapeutic modality that we use for thyroid cancer. Thyroid cancer itself can cause thyrotoxicosis. TSH secreting pituitary adenoma, HCG secreting hyaluroniform mole. These are all common etiologies that we can find etiologies for thyrotoxicosis. In spite of presence of basic disease in the gland or pituitary gland, we should always look for precipitating event. It can be sepsis, it can be heart failure, it can be stroke. So we should always make conscious efforts to know the precipitating event for thyroid storm along with basic etiology. Coming to Graves' disease, this is an autoimmune disease and there will be anti-TPO antibodies and majorly thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin will be there. This immunoglobulin will stimulate TSH receptors on the gland. The gland will be diffusely enlarged, not tender. Other supporting finding will be there will be ophthalmopathy with periorbital swelling, lid lag, and diplopia. These are the eye signs that we can see in case of the Graves' disease. Second common cause is nodular goiter, single or multinodular goiter. It is toxic multinodular goiter, we call it as Plummer's disease. These are all autonomous nodules. The difference between this disease and Graves are no antibodies, no eye signs, no ophthalmopathy. The third possibility, thyroiditis. It can be lymphocytic destructive thyroiditis. This can be because of infection or because of autoimmune. Commonly we see in case of postpartum phase and the disease is transient, lasts for 12 to 18 months. It can be completely reversible. Subacute thyroiditis is because of the viral infection. The gland will be painful, enlargement of gland will be there. ESR, CRP will be elevated. The recovery will take few weeks. Thyrotoxic factitia is because of exogenous intake of the thyroxine supplements. The major difference between exogenous and endogenous thyroid endogenous causes of thyrotoxicosis. In case of the exogenous, thyroglobulins will be normal or less or completely not detectable. In case of endogenous thyrotoxicosis, these thyroglobulins will be raised. How to diagnose? Once we suspect the diagnosis of the thyroid storm, the biochemistry should show high free T3, high free T4, or normal high T4, high T4 and high T3 levels. TSH levels will be suppressed. In case of subclinical thyrotoxicosis, free T3, free T4 will be normal and TSH will be persistently less. So once, how to know the etiology of the thyrotoxicosis? If it is Graves' disease, autoimmune, as it is autoimmune, you should be able to find thyroid binding immunoglobulins plus ophthalmopathy. Once the stigmata of Graves' disease are there, we can further confirm the disease with the help of radioactive iodine therapy. There will be diffuse uptake will be there and diffused increase in the blood flow on the thyroid ultrasound. If there are no stigmata of the Graves' disease, the radioactive iodine shows discrete areas or focal areas of increased uptake. We can call it as nodular goiter. The ultrasound will show focal increase in the blood flow. If there is no increase in the thyroid uptake and no stigmata of the Graves' disease, we should look for thyroiditis. That can be infective or autoimmune thyroiditis. If it is painless thyroid and normal or elevated serum thyroglobulins, it can be lymphocytic thyroiditis, can be postpartum or sporadic. If it is painful thyroid gland, we should consider subacute thyroiditis. If thyroglobulin levels are low or non-detectable, we should suspect thyrotoxicosis factitia. If normal free T3, free T4, TSH is suppressed means subclinical thyrotoxicosis. So we should repeat thyroid profile every 4 to 6 months and follow up with symptoms and signs and biochemistry reports. If TSH is persistently less than zero point 0.1, we should go ahead with further workup to know the cause of thyrotoxicosis. How to manage? The major principles are: block the synthesis of the hormones, block the release, block peripheral conversion of T4, T3, and beta blockers to decrease the heart rate, and block intrahepatic circulation with the help of cholestyramine. Antithyroid drugs to block the synthesis. The options are propylthiouracil and methimazole. The major functional difference of propylthiouracil is on higher doses at the dose of 400 mg, it will inhibit type 1 deiodinase enzyme in the thyroid gland and in the peripheral organs and decrease the conversion of T4 to T3 in the gland and in the peripheral organs. But in case of thyroid storm with multi-organ involvement, the T4 to T3 conversion itself will be decreased. So in case of severe thyroid storm, any of these two can be used. In case of mild to moderate severe, propylthiouracil is preferred over methimazole because the decrease in the thyroid hormone level will be faster and will be more intense compared to the methimazole. The median dose of methimazole is 30 mg, propylthiouracil is 450 mg. The range of methimazole 5 to 120 mg, propylthiouracil 150 to 1500 mg. In Western countries, approved maximal doses for methimazole 100, propylthiouracil 1600 mg respectively. In case of destructive thyroiditis, no role of anti-thyroid drugs because the mechanism is rapid release of the hormones from the gland because of the destruction. So we can use inorganic iodine, not the anti-thyroid drugs. The route of anti-thyroid drugs, IV is preferred. If IV formulae are not available, we can use enteral or rectal. The side effects of anti-thyroid drugs: pruritus, rashes, agranulocytosis, liver dysfunction. Taper as per T3, T4 levels, not as per TSH. Taper the doses of the anti-thyroid treatment as per T3, T4 levels. There is no role of monitoring TSH. What is the role of cholestyramine? Especially in case of exogenous thyrotoxicosis, it will decrease the enterohepatic circulation of the thyroid hormones. The dose is 4 grams 3 to 4 times daily. Inorganic iodine, it will decrease the synthesis and decrease the release of thyroid hormones by inhibiting oxidation and organification of the iodide, which is the major or core step in case of thyroid hormone synthesis and the release. This effect is called Wolff-Chaikoff effect. The intensity of the decrease of the hormones with iodine is more compared to the other modalities of the treatment like antithyroid drug and steroid. The another advantage of iodine is it will decrease the blood supply of the gland. So it has a role in case of preoperative phase, especially if patient is going for thyroidectomy. This inhibitory effect of iodide will last for 1 to 2 weeks. Lugol's solution, that is saturated potassium iodide. The dose is 200 mg in a day. We have to remember the interval between antithyroid drugs and inorganic iodide, that is Lugol solution, at least 1 hour. After 1 hour of antithyroid drugs, we have to give this iodide solution, not before 1 hour. Because it will, the antithyroid drugs will cause organification of the inorganic iodide and impairs its action. Other alternatives: lithium carbonate. If patient is not tolerant to antithyroid drugs, we can use lithium carbonate. Will inhibit the release of thyroid hormone, but we have to have close watch on the lithium levels. Doses of inorganic iodide should be tapered before antithyroid drugs. So we should start decreasing the dose of iodide uh, first, then first over antithyroid drugs. What is the role of steroids? In case of thyroid storm, there will be accelerated clearance of the steroids. So high chance of landing the high chance of having adrenal crisis along with thyroid storm. And not only that, other advantage of the steroids is it inhibits peripheral conversion of the T4 to T3 and hormone synthesis. 300 mg per day of hydrocortisone, 8 mg per day of dexamethasone, and we can use methylprednisolone and prednisone equivalent doses. To the general measures, we should always make efforts to decrease the temperature, normalize the temperature with the help of cool blankets, cold sponging. If patient is on extracorporeal therapy like continuous hemodialysis, we can titrate the temperature of the solvent to decrease the blood temperature. We should always make efforts to rule out the sepsis, and we can start empirical antibiotics till we get the culture report and find out the precipitating event and organ support. If sensorium is altered, having seizures, uh, keep low threshold to intubate and start the invasive ventilation, and protective measures for the liver and the kidney should be started. What is the role of therapeutic plasma exchange? If patient is not improving within 24 to 48 hours in terms of the symptoms like tachycardia, fever, and altered sensorium, there is a role of therapeutic plasma exchange. And other indication is acute liver failure with altered sensorium. It will remove the proteins, and it will remove and exchange the proteins because thyroid hormone, 99% of thyroid hormone is protein bound. The replacement solutions FFP and albumin. FFP is preferred over the albumin because it contains thyroxine binding globulin, so more accelerated clearance of the hormones will be there. The replacement volume 1 to 1.5 times the total plasma volume, and we should do daily or every 2 to 3 days until the patient improves clinically and in terms of the biochemistry. We need to draw or check the free T3, free T4 levels before and after the session. Unless these hormone levels are decreasing, better not to stop the process, therapeutic plasma exchange. Other indications along with the classical indications, if the symptom signs are severe, so we can start the therapeutic plasma exchange even within 24 hours. If there is rapid clinical worsening, patient is not tolerant our conventional therapy, or there are contraindication to our conventional therapy, or failure of conventional therapy. Coming to CNS, there can be restlessness, delirium, uh, drowsiness, coma, and convulsions. And rule out the other causes like infection and metabolic causes for altered sensorium. The drug of choice to treat psychosis, second generation antipsychotics, risperidone and olanzapine. The second choice, first generation antipsychotics, IV haloperidol and olanzapine. But as far as possible, I avoid IV haloperidol because it itself can trigger the thyrotoxicosis. To control the seizure, always benzodiazepine, so the first drug of choice, followed by fosphenytoin and phenobarbital. In case of the status, we can consider thiopental or barbital coma or IV propofol infusions. Beta blockers to control the heart rate, and it will decrease the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. The target heart rate is 130, and the dose of landolol is 1 mic per kg per minute, and we can increase up to 1 to 10 microgram per kg per minute. Followed by esmolol is preferred, but the first drug of choice is always landolol if available, followed by esmolol. Esmolol 150 microgram per kg per minute is the maximum dose, and control the heart rate up to 130. The target heart rate should be less than 130. Bisoprolol orally we can give up to 2.5 to 5 mg in a day. Landolol is ultra short acting. The beta selectivity of landolol is 8-fold higher than the esmolol. So it can be safely used even in case of the COPD and asthma. When to stop beta blockers? When heart rate is less than 80 per minute and systolic blood pressure less than 80 millimeters of mercury, and cardiac index is around 2.2 liters per minute per meter square. If beta blockers are not tolerable, we can consider calcium channel blockers, verapamil and diltiazem. But problem with this calcium channel blocker is vasodilatation and high chance of having hypotension. Other alternatives for to control heart rate or to control rhythm disturbances like disoxin, amiodarone, and other class 1A and class 1C antiarrhythmic drugs. What is the role of anticoagulation? Patients should be on at least prophylactic dose of anticoagulation because there is high risk of thrombosis because of coagulation fibrolysis imbalance. If patient is on AF, as it is non-valvular AF, we can consider CHARTS 2 score to guide our anticoagulation. If score of more than 2, consider therapeutic dose of anticoagulation. Radioactive iodine therapy, it is one of the treatment modality, especially in case of the Graves' disease and toxic multinodular goiter. It will destroy the gland and decrease the hormone levels and decrease the gland size. Single dose will be enough in most of the scenarios, but it's absolutely contraindicated in case of pregnancy and lactation. Side effects, it can cause thyroiditis, anterior neck pain, and this the thyroiditis itself cause leakage of the hormones and worsening of the symptoms and signs. So before starting on radioactive iodine, patient should be treated with thionamides. Other side effect, ophthalmopathy, especially in case of the smokers. So pre-treatment with glucocorticoids can be prevented the ophthalmopathy. Thyroidectomy, this is one of the treatment modality for both Graves and multinodular goiter. But before surgery, patient has to be in euthyroid state with the help of thionamide and other antithyroid drugs. And to decrease the vascularity, the patient should receive 10 days, 7 to 10 days treatment of Rugal solution or saturated potassium iodide. This is about etiology. I have already discussed. Uh, Graves' disease, toxic adenoma, multinodular goiter, factitia, thyrotoxicosis factitia, and postpartum. These are all things I have discussed thoroughly in first few slides. The other very rare causes of thyrotoxicosis are iodine-induced hyperthyroidism because of excessive iodine. Uh, in this scenario, if in case of radioactive iodine uptake scan, the uptake will be less or undetectable. Other drug-induced thyrotoxicos like lithium and interferon alpha, the thyroid uptake will be elevated like Graves' disease because lithium and interferon alpha will induce the Graves' disease, will flare up the autoimmune phenomenon. So the radioactive iodine uptake will be increased. In case of amiodarone-induced thyrotoxicosis, it's basically like iodine-induced thyrotoxicosis or inflammatory thyroiditis. So the uptake will be decreased. Pituitary adenoma, TSH secreting pituitary adenoma. The TSH hormone will be increased and alpha subunit will be increased. Along with the TSH hormone, alpha subunit will be increased in peripheral serum thyroid hormones. Gestational thyrotoxicosis, it's because of stimulation of the gland, thyroid gland with the TSH receptors by HCG. So if the HCG is secreting over pregnancy, that itself can cause gestational thyrotoxicosis. In that scenario, as the thyroid radioactive iodine scan is contraindicated in case of the pregnancy. So presence of the pregnancy itself can clinches the diagnosis, hyperemesis and multiple gestation first trimester. So these are all the clues to diagnose gestational thyrotoxicosis. And we can check HCG levels. If HCG levels are very much high, we can suspect gestational thyrotoxicosis with the help of the biochemistry itself. It is molar pregnancy, presence of molar pregnancy and elevated HCG will confirm the diagnosis. Struma ovarian, in case of struma ovarian, because of ovarian teratoma with differentiation primarily to the thyroid cells. In such scenario, if we do thyroid radioactive iodine uptake, the uptake will be less or not detectable. If it is because of thyroid carcinoma, functional thyroid carcinoma, the radioactive uptake will be visible all over the body in case of metastatic thyroid carcinoma. Prognostication is with the help of Apache 2 score, we can estimate the mortality. For Apache 2 score more than 34, 85% of the mortality. So with this, I am ending this session. So we'll meet up soon with adrenal crisis. Stay safe and take care.